Hello BookTube. I've got another one from Before the Muses, translated by Benjamin R. Foster. This is Sargon, King of Battle. There's also a Wikipedia article about this text, which I've read and I'll be referencing throughout this review, and I'll link to the Wikipedia article in the description down below. Now, in this book, Before the Muses, there are actually two texts, both called Sargon, King of Battle. One of them comes from what Benjamin R. Foster classifies as the classical period of Akkadian literature, and the other one comes from what he calls the mature period of Akkadian literature. This one here is from the mature period. The one from the classical period is a little bit hard to review because it's in fragments. These are all in fragments, but it's more in fragments than in the others. It's hard to piece together the narrative. It's difficult to talk about. It does share a little bit of similarities with this later version of Sargon, King of Battle, in that they're both apparently about an invasion of Anatolia. But as Benjamin R. Foster notes in the introduction here, it doesn't look like this is a linear descendant of that. So the one in the mature period is probably not a linear descendant of the text in the classical period, although they may have had similar influences. Wikipedia says that Sargon, King of Battle, and I think they mean the mature period one here, was one of three texts about Sargon of Akkad. Apparently there are 23 texts that were composed about Sargon of Akkad, at least that we know about, but only 3 of them were still being circulated in the Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian period. And yes, again, the Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian period are what Benjamin R. Foster is classifying here as the mature period of Akkadian literature. Although, as Benjamin R. Foster notes in his introduction to the section on the mature period of Akkadian literature, it's a little bit unclear exactly when these were composed. So even if archaeologists find them during the Neo-Babylonian or Neo-Assyrian period, it doesn't mean that that's when they were written. They could have been composed at an earlier date and then just handed down to that. So that there's some discussion about when they were actually composed. But at any rate, they were circulating during the mature period, aka the Neo-Assyrian or Neo-Babylonian period, which, as Wikipedia notes, is 1,500 years after the events of Sargon of Akkad. So I find this interesting. This is something I'm beginning to appreciate as I go through this journey of discovering ancient Mesopotamian literature, how much of a tradition there was before that tradition got lost. So, somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but during the Christian era, Sargon of Akkad, along with the rest of Akkadian literature, was just forgotten about. Nobody knew about it until archaeologists started digging this up in the 19th century. But despite being lost to history for a long period of time, there was also a long period of time, a period of a couple thousand years, where this tradition was being kept alive in Mesopotamia through the centuries before it got lost. So yeah, it's just interesting kind of how long history is, how things get remembered for centuries or millennia and then get forgotten about for a couple millennia and then rediscovered again. And so interesting to see Sargon of Akkad's legacy in the literature of Mesopotamia before it got lost, right? Okay. So this text here, Sargon, King of Battle, is talking about Sargon going to reconquer Anatolia. Now, I believe Anatolia is where modern-day Turkey is now, and it's where the Hittite Empire was. And as Benjamin R. Foster notes in his introduction to this text, we've got like 5 copies of this text. They're all in fragments, but put together the fragments and we can kind of piece together most of it. And I believe 3 of these copies, several of these copies, come from the Hittite Empire in Anatolia. And he says it's not surprising. The Hittites knew who Sargon was. They knew that he made it as far as Anatolia, so they were kind of interested in this episode of history. There are another couple copies that were found in Egypt, and I think the theory is that these copies that were found in Egypt were used to teach Akkadian to the Egyptians who lived there, possibly. But anyways, the narrative. So Sargon gets reports that some of the cities in Anatolia are rebelling against him. I guess he's already established his empire, but some of the cities in Anatolia want to rebel. His soldiers do not want to march all the way up into Anatolia. They are tired. They've done a lot of conquering. They've been marching all over Mesopotamia, and they just want to rest. The merchants, however, want this expedition. They've got business interests up there. Apparently with Anatolia being in revolt, the Akkadian merchants are not welcomed. So they promise Sargon lots of riches if he goes up and reconquers Anatolia, and they promise to fund it. I should note, actually, it's not the whole of Anatolia. It's one city, which in this edition here is called Burushanda. It's got a slightly different name in the Wikipedia version. I assume that's just maybe a difference in transcription. Anyways, excuse me, my throat's getting a little bit dry. Sargon decides he's going to march and do the reconquest. We then cut to the Burushanda, where there is a king whose name is Nur-Daga. Again, Wikipedia gives a slightly different version. Now, according to Wikipedia, the god Enlil warns King Nur-Daga that Sargon is coming. That's actually not in this version here by Benjamin R. Foster. I don't know if that would be a slightly different version. It does also say fragmentary lines right at the part where that would have been happening, so maybe it's part of the fragments. But at any rate, when we pick up the action again, the king Nur-Daga knows that Sargon is coming. He's gotten reports, but he tells everyone not to worry because there's a riverbank of very high water and then a massive forest thick with thorns that are going to keep Sargon out, keep Sargon away. Well, he's talking. All of a sudden, Sargon appears. He's already done the march. He just comes right into the city, and Sargon mocks him, repeating back to the king what the king had already said. So, go ahead, king. Say again how the river and the thorns were going to keep me away. The king, knowing that the game is up, does an immediate about-face and says, "Oh, Sargon, you're so great, you're so wonderful, the gods must favor you. I'd like to give you lots of treasure." And the king offers him a lot of treasure. And then Sargon stays in that city for 3 years, is the end of the poem. So literally the very end. 3 years in the city he had stayed. The end. And then that's the end. So that is Sargon, King of Battle. According to Wikipedia, out of the 23 stories about Sargon, this is only one of 3 that's still circulated by the Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian period, 1,500 years after the events of Sargon of Akkad himself. And the other two stories, or the other two texts circulating, are also in this volume, I believe. So when I come to that, I will review them in turn. Stay tuned for that, and until then, thank you very much, BookTube, and I will see you later.